On this episode,
I was actually talking to my wife on the phone and I hear these gunshots and I was like, oh, I just heard these gunshots. I got to go.
I want to talk to Samson.
I have a conversation with a good friend of mine. He shares his story working in asset protection and his journey dealing with the trauma. Please welcome David Husher. Oh yeah, David, it's great to have you, man.
It's good to be here. Haven't seen you in forever.
No, it's been too long. So getting into kind of your story, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but where does that really begin for you?
Yeah. So one reason why I did this podcast too, and is kind of try to bring awareness to the mental health for security guards. There's not a lot of like companies out there that gives you resources when you go through trauma, especially in security. You're kind of just like, well, it kind of comes with the job and you just got to go to the next thing. And my story really kind of begins with Target. And I was working produce at Target and I saw this big British guy, just like monster of a guy, running after a shoplifter, and he tackles this shoplifter and then just takes them back to the office. I was like, oh man, that was like so awesome. I kind of want to do that. And so they had a job opening and I went for it. And he's the one that actually got me the job. And me and him ended up being just like really good friends and working really well together. And he trained me and just taught me everything that I know about security. Unfortunately, he just passed away in August. He had high blood pressure that caused bleeding in his brain, in which that ended up into a stroke. So I've been in contact with his family because he was from the UK. And so I still talk to his mom and dad, and it was pretty rough because it was unexpected. We weren't expecting to lose him, but he taught me everything that I know. And so my story kind of starts there, and just I have tons and tons of crazy different stories. You'd be shocked.
So, well, let's go from the beginning. So you get like interested in being in security. You get interviewed by, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
And you get interviewed by this guy. So take me through those first maybe couple weeks of being a security guard.
Yeah, those first couple of weeks of being a security guard were very nerve-wracking because the time Target had us in uniforms, and they looked like you were a police officer. And so it kind of made you like nervous because like people looked at you differently when you put that uniform on. And then and then too, a lot of people will harass you and bully you and like call you like Paul Blart and stuff like that, but I kind of owned it. So I'd be like, yeah, I wish I could be awesome like Paul Blart. I'm not as cool as him. So but those first couple of weeks just really intense, a lot of anxiety. Are you doing things right? Because one little wrong move can cause you to get sued and cause the company to get sued. You can also be charged with like crimes if you're too rough with someone and like say they get a bruise, and then the police have to come and review that footage and see if you were right to use that much force. So it was very nerve-wracking your first couple weeks when you're learning all that stuff and taking all that information at one time.
So what are you allowed to do? Like, say you caught me shoplifting, like I stole a bunch of meat or something.
Yeah, so in the state of Colorado, it's different for every state, so you have to look at your state laws. So in the state of Colorado, we're allowed to detain you and use any force necessary to detain you until police get there. So what that entails, if you shoplift and you're going out the door, I come and stop you and I say, hey, I'm asset protection, I need you to come back to my office. You try to run, we can use any force necessary to detain you that's reasonable. So like I could tackle you, put you in handcuffs, and bring you back to the office. So, but you got to make sure you're not using too much force. Like I can't sit there and hit you in the head. You know what I mean? I can't sit there and beat you up.
Can't choke me out kind of thing.
Can't choke you out. Yeah. Unless you're trying to choke me or harm me, then I can use the same force or one more step up.
Okay, so like if I pulled a knife on you and you hit me with a baton, knock the knife out of my hand, that's reasonable because I was trying to kill you.
So with that, say you pulled a knife on me, that's actually deadly force. So then I can meet you with deadly force. So that I could pull like some security I did was armed security. So at that time I could actually pull my gun and shoot you.
Because now your life is in danger.
Now my life is at risk. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're like trying to figure out the kind of the ropes, like what am I allowed to do, what am I not allowed to do? You're getting kind of harassed by people. But I'm sure there's good things in there too. I'm sure you get to help people and
Oh yeah, there's a lot of positives too. I gotta share one story. We apprehended this, this younger woman, and it was mostly groceries, but she did have some electronic things. Our rule was kind of, and Ian taught me this, the friend who passed away. Our rule was if it's groceries and stuff, we're not going to stop you unless it's like a lot of stakes, like you're obviously boosting stakes to sell. If it was food products, we'd leave you alone. That was just our kind of code that we kind of had as a team. But we got this woman because she ended up kind of getting some electronics and stuff. And instead of charging her with the crimes, we put her through a program that the city of Longmont had, and it's called restorative justice. You can send them through that program, and then that program, as long as they clear that program, that criminal history goes away. So it kind of just shows them like why shoplifting is so bad and why it's so harmful to the community and to the store. And then once they complete that and they like write you an apology letter and stuff like that, it would they would be clear of the crime. And then as long as they didn't get in trouble going forward, then it would go away. And one of those things why it helped her out was she was able to kind of get more on the right track, and they gave her a bunch of resources to help her get like food for her kids. It was around Christmas time, so they helped her like get Christmas presents for her kids, and they showed her these programs that the city had, so she didn't have to fall back to stealing.
Gotcha. Like maybe like food stamps and WIC and those kind of programs.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, no, that's awesome. I've always kind of said that, like, why don't we have more of those like type of programs for people?
Yeah, and they do work. I mean, you do get your repeated offenders that will go through that program, but then still just for whatever come back and shoplift or do other things. But those programs do work really well from what I've seen.
Okay, no, that's awesome. So now you're going through the program, you're learning the ropes, and can you go more, I guess, more into that? Like from there, what kind of training do you get, I guess?
So a lot of these companies only put you through a couple hours of training and throw you out on your own. So it's all about just learning the ropes as it goes. So that gives you a lot of anxiety because like you're just like going through your head. It's just like, oh my gosh, if I do this, I do that wrong, I do this wrong. You kind of just have to go with the flow, and I kind of relied on my friend to teach me everything. So thankfully I had him, because if I was just thrown in there by myself, I probably would end up sued, fired, a bunch of things, because they don't give you much training at all. It's only a couple hours.
Plus, I mean,
there you go.
It's probably scary. I mean, like you're a decently sized guy, but like, I've, from my experience in, fighting and all that, there's always a bigger fish, right? There's always somebody that can ruin your day, or even like pull a knife on you, right? So that's got to be scary, right? That whole element, like what if I mess with the wrong guy,
Yeah, exactly. And I'll kind of go into like my first kind of trauma of that job was actually at Target, and I had a guy that was about 7'1" and probably about 250 pounds of pure muscle, and my friend's like, hey, can you run out the doors, come around and be at the front, and I'm going to come from the back, and we're going to kind of sandwich this guy inside the doors. And so when we did, he looked at me and he ran straight at me fast as he can. And he just plows into me and uses his like shoulder and his like elbow, and it pushed me, and I ended up falling and hitting my head on the like concrete pillar that they had there at Target. And I ended up with a severe concussion and a sprained neck. And they're like, when I went to the doctors, they were like, we see the type of whiplash that you got is like what people get in car accidents. And I'm like, yeah, it was just a random shoplifter that did this to me. Never got caught either. So that was like one of my first major trauma events where it was like, man, is this job kind of worth it anymore? And but I was just able to what I shouldn't have done is I kind of compared my trauma to other people, right? So I like looked at this and I was like, yeah, but like US troops go through a lot worse than this. So I just need to suck it up and move on. And that's how I kind of move on from different traumas.
Yeah. So this guy, I mean, would those kind of situations happen a lot where somebody's like lashing back at you guys, or most of the time would they just accept it and go to the office with you?
No, so I would say about 75% of the time it was a fight. So it's either we're going to the ground, we're putting you in handcuffs, and because a lot of people weren't used to that too. They were used to the way Walmart had it, because Walmart, they can't touch you at all. So when they came and shoplifted at Target, they didn't think we could touch them, but we could. So then when they would run on us and we try to apprehend them, it'd go into a full-on like fight.
It almost seems like Walmart's switching that now, where they might. I've seen like a lot of security outside of Walmart. And
Yes and no. I think they're more trying to go to armed security to be like deterring. That's the whole goal of that, is have a security guard up front that's armed and looks like he can do a lot of things. So then when someone that comes in to shoplift kind of looks and goes, oh no, I'll go somewhere else.
Okay. So do they have anything to kind of deal with that trauma you guys got? Like, hey, it's not, this stuff kind of happened. No one talks to you about that, like therapy or anything?
They don't have. So the only thing that you can really do is try to file a workman's comp claim. They don't have no resources. They don't give you like, hey, you just went through this traumatic event. Let's, do you need someone to talk to you? We can try to get you a therapy. Nothing like that.
So this is the weird, and kind of going into my own personal experience, and let me know if you can kind of relate. So I think this was back, my dates might be off, but I got in a car accident about 5 years ago. Okay. Basically I was driving this car. I had just fixed it up. I was all happy about it. And we're driving to the gas station. It was me and my friend. And I might've been going a little quick down the road, but maybe it was like a 30 miles an hour. And I think I was going like 40, 45 because I'm just happy that I'm driving my car. Well, this other car turns into traffic. I had the right of way, but they turned right in front of me. I ended up T-boning them. And I slammed my brakes. You could see the swerve marks and everything. But I smacked right into them. The cop told me that no matter how fast I was going, it's their fault because they turned on the oncoming traffic. But getting into like the whole trauma thing, like even after all of that, I had a hard time getting in a car. And it's not like I had a choice. It's just it's like my nervous system was scared because they knew it, like we got hurt when we were in this car. Right. So the only way I had to get past it is just start driving and just keep doing it. But I can imagine like now you're in your job and faced
my phone, my bad.
No, you're good. You can pick it up. But now you're in this job and you're facing the same kind of circumstance that could bring back, and I guess I use the word like PTSD, or like it could bring back that past trauma to you. So I'm imagining you probably have you've experienced this and now you're back at the same job doing the same thing. And there's got to be that in your back of your mind. Like, what if I run into that situation again?
Yeah. So it would be like in the back of your mind, but for whatever reason, up till recently from my like severe injury from work, I used to always be able to just kind of throw it away and kind of put it away and be like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. And because I would compare my trauma and I wouldn't really deal with it and really like try to talk through someone through it and try to like really understand it. I kind of was able to just kind of throw it away and just like, okay, it's on to the next one. Yeah, this happened. But you know what? A lot of things happen to people that are a lot worse. And so I kept kind of just storing it away and just kept like, so then like I went from Target and then I went to Walmart, right? So I started working security at Walmart. That was a whole different beast. Like I started getting knives pulled on me, guns pulled on me. And I was like, man, is this really worth it? And so I was going to actually quit security and loss prevention altogether. And then I had a friend that said, hey, come over to Kohl's. It's a lot more easier. You're only dealing with like soccer moms. Well, that wasn't true. So I go to Kohl's in Brighton, Colorado, and I'm like dealing with like boosters that are coming in stealing like, they're like, hey, we have guys that just came in from Florida. They got a rental car. We think they're gonna come around and start boosting a bunch of stuff. Because there's a lot that goes into like,
What's boosting?
so boosting is when they're going after a certain type of merchandise, right? So then they're gonna come in is all Nike stuff or all Under Armour stuff. They're looking for one exact items of a name brand, and that is so they can go put it in a storage unit and sell it all online. So they'll put it in, like they'll go around and make their rounds and steal from all the stores in Colorado, then take it back to a storage unit and put it all in there, and then they'll sell the stuff like one by one online, or try to sell it in bulk for really cheap.
So they're basically profiting on the name brands.
Oh yeah. So and you wouldn't think so, but a lot goes into it. With like, I was part of like retail investigations where we would try to follow those kind of people, and Target had this investigation van that would be parked out of people's houses that were well-known shoplifters, and they would start surveillance on them, live surveillance, and try to track every movement, everything that they were doing. So we would know, we'd get a call from our investigation team, hey, so and so is out right now hitting stores. I want you guys to try to get them. Like you like, we'd mostly get the call because Ian was such a big guy and I'm such a big guy, and the investigation team would call and be like, we want you guys to try to catch them. We want you guys to take them on. So we're like, all right, here we go. And we just sit there, and we knew they were coming. And then once we got them, we grab them up, and then that's when they hand everything over to the police. And one of our biggest cases was we apprehended this one guy that had over $200,000 in theft over the whole year.
So wait, hold on. So there's got to be like a layer of like badassery to this. Like you're like, oh hell yeah, bro, we're gonna go catch these guys. You know, there's getting hyped up for it.
Yeah, it's an addiction. Like, to be honest, like you get addicted to it. You're like, oh man, you get so hyped up. We're
like
gonna
an
catch
adrenaline rush, right?
You're gonna catch this guy, and you're not thinking of what's gonna go wrong, what can or will go wrong. And I unfortunately learned that later on in my career that it's just not worth it. It's just merchandise.
So like you caught that. How did you catch that guy that had like over $200,000 worth of stuff?
So they knew where he was storing and selling all this stuff at, because they had the investigation van on him, the live surveillance, and he came into our store and he went to push out about, I think it was like $2,000 worth of stuff. It was like electronics.
That's where they just take the cart and basically walk out with it.
They just take. Yeah, there's many forms of it and different things. Like one sign to watch out for is if like they're pulling the cart instead of pushing the cart. Because if they're pulling the cart and they're coming up to the doors and they see the loss prevention officer running, they'll just let go of the cart and then walk out. Well, technically they didn't walk out, so you can't go bust them because the cart's still left behind. So you have to be really careful and time your stops right to make sure like you can get them with all the merchandise. But yeah, so he was just pushing out, and then me and my friend came from the front, and then we had another coworker that came from the back, and he looked at me and my friend, and he says, "I'm not fighting you guys, just take me." He didn't want to test us, so we got lucky. And
was he a big guy, or
he was kind of big, not like too big, but we were just lucky he didn't have weapons on him. Like he could have had a gun on him, he could have had a knife
probably
on
had the
him.
same idea. It's just merchandise, right?
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not fighting you guys. But he didn't realize we had such a big case on him. He thought we were just getting him for that $2,000 right there. But they came with our investigation team came and was like, hey, like we want, like, here's all the evidence. This guy's going to be charged for over $200,000 worth of stuff stolen.
That's felony.
Oh yeah, I think it was over anything over 2,000 was already a felony, but he got like, I think it was like 4 or 5 years in prison for it.
Okay.
So it was intense, but like I said, going, kind of like too, when I want to do this podcast is just kind of talk about the traumas though, because kind of hard for me to talk about, but it's rough because So I went to Walmart. So I did security at Walmart, and that was just absolute crazy. You know, like I had apprehended this one lady for shoplifting, right? And we're hanging out in my office. She goes, "I need to go to the bathroom," and I'm like, "Well, we just have to wait until the police get here, and you could go to the bathroom." And all of a sudden, she just stands up and then just takes a poop on my floor. So those are the type of people I'm dealing with, like 24/7, and so it's like, you know, so I go from Walmart and then I go to Kohl's, thinking Kohl's wasn't going to be that crazy, but I had, you know, the boosters to deal with, and that was a time I actually got maced. I got someone hit me with bear spray, like
Oh God.
yeah, it was pretty bad. It was like I was chasing after them, and they just turned around and just maced me. Yeah, so that was the first time I've ever been maced. That was pretty bad. And then that's when I was like, you know what? It's just merchandise. I'm not really feeling the job anymore. So that's when I took a break and I started doing like Uber and Lyft. And then I get a call from, or I didn't get a call from anyone. I just like was kind of just like, after that break, I thought I felt better, like I can go back into security again. That's when I started hospital security. And hospital security was just the most craziest thing ever.
So during all of this, are you getting paid like relatively well? Do security guards get paid decent or?
Um, for retail, not really. I mean, I was making like at the time $12 an hour.
My God. So
Yeah.
that's pretty intense to only be making like a little bit maybe above minimum wage at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I was barely making like minimum wage. My friend, he was I was uniformed, he was undercover. So he'd wear plain clothes. And he had been with the company for like 20 years, so he was making I think he was making like $22 an hour.
Yeah, but you could work at like Home Depot and make.
Yeah, yeah, but like you said, so it was just kind of like a thing you had to be kind of passionate about, because I kind of was wanting to go into law enforcement and stuff like that, and so that's kind of why I picked that kind of choice too, of going down that route. But yeah, even at the hospital job, I was only making $15 now, and that is like way more intense.
So I'm betting it's like ebbs and flows, right? Like most of the time you're just chilling. It's like pretty easy going. And then when it is on, I bet it's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
on now.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me, there was times where like nothing was going on, and I'm sitting in my office playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah. That's,
So-
that's what I'm saying. I bet it's
Yeah.
like there's chill times.
Yeah,
And then,
there's chill times, but then when it's go, it's go.
okay. Like I was a lifeguard for a while, and that's kind of how it was. Like you'd be most of the time is pretty chill, and then randomly you'd have to like jump in and like pull a kid out of the water.
Yeah,
Or, you know, like because it would happen quick.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I have a problem now turning off my fight mode. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so recently I was diagnosed with like PTSD from all my traumas that I've experienced in my job, especially the hospital side of security. And I used to be able to like kind of turn it off and put it away, but now I can't. It's so hard.
So does how do I say this? Does workman's comp, like do they pay for like therapy or anything like that to kind of talk that out with somebody?
Yeah, so my case is kind of different because so I was working in the hospitals and through COVID and everything, and it just got way out of hand and just got way too intense. I had a friend that I was working with who moved to the government side of the security, and he was like, "Hey man, come down and work with me at the Denver and City
Wait,
County building."
I guess that, hold on, I might be kind of skipping. So like,
Yeah.
if we go back to the hospital, why was that so wild?
So okay, we can go back to the hospital.
Yeah,
and
just
kinda
so
talk about
we're
that.
kind of on a linear.
So the hospital was so crazy because they lied to me. So when I first got the job, they were telling me that I was going to be at the front screening people, just like looking for weapons, asking them what they have, and then putting them through a metal detector. They didn't tell me anything about the psych unit. So,
Oh,
at the hospital I worked at was Lamont United Hospital, and we had a psych unit for people who were on emergency 72-hour holds. So I was working about 16 hours a day. So I would I'd come in at midnight, work until 4 p.m. the next day, and then turn around and come back at midnight. And I was doing mostly psych unit stuff. So where I'm sitting in the psych unit and you have patients in these rooms and you're watching these patients that are SI, which is suicidal, or HI, which is like homicidal, like they want to hurt people. And it was just crazy. They'd fight us. They would try to run on us all the time. You had to do everything you could to keep them there. And so you would have to hold them down while nurses gave them medication or drew blood. And they're just like they're just fighting, right? But they're not. A lot of them are not in their right mind, so they don't know. I didn't take it personally, but like I was getting punched in the face. I was getting spit on. I had to get checked so many times for like different type of diseases because like they'd spit in my eyes. So I started wearing glasses so they can so if they spit at me, it wouldn't get in my eyes. Um, you know, there was times where like people were bleeding everywhere, and then you have their blood all over you. Just crazy amount of things. I had a psych patient take out their IV and then try to stab me with it. You see a lot of like people dying. You see a lot of people dying. Like the hardest one on me was seeing a child die that was only 5 months old.
And they're in the psych unit?
She wasn't in the psych unit. She was a trauma victim that came into our ED. And at that time, I was in psych, but since I was the supervisor at that time, I got promoted to a supervisor. I would pull off my security guards I'd pull them off of like patrol, have them come sit at the psych unit while I went and dealt with more serious situations like that, because they want security there because parents can get so emotional and out of control and they can attack the doctor, they can attack the nurses. So I had to be in that room in case that happens. So they always wanted you in the room for crazy situations like that, and they don't prepare you for that. Like you walk into the room and you're watching these nurses trying to perform CPR on a child, and you're just like, and I'm a very sensitive person, so like you have to hold all of your emotions in. They don't want you crying, they don't want you tearing up or anything, because I'm supposed to be big mean security there to like beat people up if they get out of hand and stuff. But really we're humans too, and we go through our emotions too, and so you're sitting there and you're watching a kid die and you're watching the family scream, cry, and you're having to try to get the family out of the room and trying to calm the situation down so the nurses and stuff can keep trying to work.
I bet that's probably more traumatic than getting punched in the face.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's what I deal with now with my PTSD and stuff. I deal with a lot of that kind of nightmares, and like when I'm trying to fall asleep, my whole body will jerk and I'll like wake up, and it's like because like I'm trying to go to sleep, but then I get these nightmares of all those situations I've been through.
So was the hospital probably the most intense out of all the places?
So the hospital was, but the downtown Denver security at the Denver and City County building was more chill, but then I saw a really bad traumatic event go down there too. So I was actually talking to my wife on the phone, and I hear these gunshots, and I was like, "Oh, I just heard these gunshots. I gotta go." And I look on camera, and I see all these people running through through the front part of the building. So I'm like, I have to go out and investigate it to make sure nothing happened on property. So I go out there and I look out on Kofax, and I just see these people bleeding out to death. They're just like, and there's nothing I can do. Like they're shot up. There's nothing I can do.
Call the paramedics.
You know, I went about the call, but then the ambulance already was like rolling up, like before I even had the chance to call. So what I did in that situation, I went back to my office, looked at my video to see if I can get the suspects on film so that I can have that already ready for the police. And I already had so I was able to see on video the shooting. I was able to see on the video the suspects and then the vehicle they got into and the direction they took off in. So then I relay that right away to police. And so I thought threw the gun away because they were in the bushes and it looked like he threw something. So then I went outside with the police and then tried to look for the handgun.
I mean, there's got to be. So again, I kind of mentioned this briefly, but like you go through that trauma, but then there's also kind of that element of like you are doing a service, like you're helping.
Yes. Yeah.
people.
So you're doing a service and you're having to keep on just doing it. Like you, in my brain, I'm just like putting it away and I'm like, hey, there's a, on to the next thing. Because it's like, what's going to happen next? But there's always going to be something up next.
So it's almost like touching kind of the similar things that probably police officers and stuff go through.
Oh yeah, definitely. And a lot of people don't realize, and it depends on your post. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of security jobs out there that are really easy, and they're not hardly doing anything. But then there's a lot of security jobs out there that are very hard, and you're seeing so much trauma, just as much as medical staff or police officers.
Yeah, because I used to work at this company, and there was a security guard that just like ran the front desk, and he probably had like the easiest job.
Yeah, exactly.
And no, like not to like knock him, like there was a reason he was there, but like, you know, that he didn't deal like he was dealing with like people that worked in a call center, and we're just going to work.
Oh yeah,
like nobody's there to like steal stuff.
Yeah,
he's there for like worst case scenario.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize. So security guards are most of the time are the first one on scene in situations, and they actually die more in the line of duty than police officers. So on average, I think there's about 80 security guards that die in the line of duty.
Like per year?
Per year. Yep. Because they're the first responders, and most of the time they don't have the tools or training to protect themselves in the situation.
So if we could go, I guess, into the reason, how did you end up? So you go from the medical industry, and it's insane. You're seeing death. You're seeing all these psych guys, which is got to be pretty intense. And then you move on. You said to like a government.
Yeah. So I went on to the government section. And too, if there's more trauma stuff you guys, or if you want me to share,
only
from
with
the hospital,
I try not to push because it's like.
So I just kind of wanted to show more to you like how crazy the hospital side of it was, right? So when it got towards like when we're dealing with COVID, we saw an intake of so many psych patients. And so you'd be sitting here fighting with a psych patient because they're just, so out of it. They don't know what they're doing. They have schizophrenia. They have whatever it is, right? You're holding down this patient, getting him injected, getting him to go to sleep. And then the whole COVID side of it hit, and we're going against regular patient, or like not like sometimes regular patients, but just the visitors, like family members. So one thing that was really hurtful for me and kind of traumatic too was I had to personally tell people that I knew that they couldn't come into the hospital and say bye to their loved ones. Like there was this one girl, I worked with her at Walmart, and I knew her really well. And she's like, "You seriously going to do this to me, David? You're like, you're not going to let me come say bye to my mom?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I can't." And we'd have people try to push through us to get into the hospital to go say bye to their loved ones. And we couldn't let them through. It was just like a law that said, since it's COVID, we can't let these people in here because it's going to cause it to spread more. That was very traumatic. And you'd get into situations like seeing the 5-year-old or 5-month-old die, and then you're sitting there trying to help with that, and then all of a sudden you get called up on the 3rd floor of like, hey, a patient just attacked a nurse, we need you up here. And then you go up there, and then the nurse is getting attacked, and I was doing this, and it was only like me and 2 other security guards on duty at the time. You have like 5 or 6 psych patients, you have those security guards on those, and then I'm up running by myself trying to help with those kind of situations. And then you have a helicopter coming in with another, and then we had to help with the helicopters. You had a helicopter coming in, and then you're having to run out there, assist with the helicopter because someone else is coming in that's a trauma victim, or you're trying to send someone out to a higher trauma hospital. That stuff was was so intense. A lot of people don't realize how intense hospital security can get. Now that was only for the company I worked for. Some companies out there won't let the security guards touch the patients or anything. They kind of just back off and say, you have to call the police. But the security company I worked for, we were really hands on.
So, I mean, with you guys being so hands-on, you think you would be maybe paid a little more? You'd be
Yeah.
and have more resources to your
Yeah,
disposal?
you would think so, but
Like
they
you guys were
didn't.
given tasers or anything?
So we did have tasers. So I never used my taser. There was once where I pulled it on a patient actually, but that was because I was trying to get him to snap out of his psychosis because he literally thought my pin was floating in the air and trying to get to him. So he was trying to punch my pin, but he was actually hitting me. And so when I pulled out the taser and put the red marker on him, it like snapped him out of it. So I never actually hit anyone with the taser, but we did have that option.
Okay, well that's a little better, right?
Yeah.
You're not like out there unequipped at all.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I went through all that trauma, they didn't have anything for security to see a therapist or to like debrief or anything. It was just like, oh, okay,
Which
on
is
to the
odd
next.
because you're in the medical field. You
Yeah.
think there'd be somebody.
Yeah, and what made me actually quit that job 100% was I actually got hurt. I was actually by myself and I was working a 24-hour shift, and I got kicked in the chest multiple times and I was coughing up blood. And the nurses actually grabbed me and took me into a room and like just started like x-raying me and stuff because I was coughing up blood. And so they're like, no, like get away from this situation. We need to put you in a room and you need to be seen by the doctor right away. Thankfully, nothing serious was wrong. And they think some blood vessels got broken in my chest when he kicked me in the chest multiple times. And so that was my last shift on hospital security. So I was like, no, I'm done with it because they had switched to a no company and I went to that company and they couldn't find people to work there. And it was like me and just like 4 other people. So I was working like 24-hour shifts. I was like, no, I'm done.
Getting burned out.
I was getting burned out. And especially it was during COVID. So it was just like, it made everything worse. So then that's when I jumped ship to the government side of job.
And I'm betting, do they have better benefits and things like that?
Yeah, it was better pay. I was getting paid like, it was like $26 an hour as a supervisor.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, and then I was working a lot of overtime, so I was bringing in really decent money. But they told me it was going to be a really easy job. They're like, you're in the same building of the Denver sheriffs with the mayor of Denver, so they're like, you don't have to do anything. They're like, all you have to do is do your patrols and then make sure that the scanners at the door are doing their jobs, and that's all you have to do. And I was like, oh, awesome. And I was like, now I finally get one of those relaxing security jobs that I thought it was gonna be, but it ended up didn't. It ended up being crazy too. Maybe I'm just bad luck. They kind of told me that because my friend told me that he's like nothing was going on until you came on board, and now all this stuff is going on. So you're just attracting this craziness.
Well, or maybe those other guards were not noticing things.
So that's what it came down to. Is I looked into it and I said a lot of stuff's going on. They're just not reporting it because they didn't like when I got onto that job. The security guards didn't know how to do their reports. They didn't know how to like because we had these like little phones that you had to write reports in. They didn't know how to do any of that. So I had to try to sit there and train them how to do all that because they're supposed to be writing reports when something happens, something goes down on property. And like one of my first days there, someone tried to bring a gun inside and they saw it on the scanner. So they locked it down and let the Denver sheriffs take over. Well, I was like, oh, okay, awesome. I'm like, so are you guys starting your report? And they're like, report? We don't do reports. And I'm like, yes, you need to do a report on this. Like, no wonder why they don't think anything's going on over here.
Yeah, because there's nothing being reported.
Nothing being reported, yeah. So then my first week there, I almost got stabbed. So I was doing a nightly patrol, and I don't have a taser or anything. I was going for my certification through them to become a roaming supervisor that was armed. And I had this lady screaming like someone's trying to kill her, and she's running from Civic Park. And I told her, I'm like, well, come over here. And I like shined my really bright flashlight that way. And there was this guy with a knife, and he's just chasing her. And he's like, I'm going to stab you. I'm going to kill you. And he saw me, and thankfully he ran the other way. But I wasn't armed. So if he came at us with a knife, I would have had gone head to head with a guy with no no utilities to help me.
Yeah, I mean, because you really kind of need something as a. I mean, yeah, you have your size,
Yeah.
but if someone's not in their right mind,
No,
you know,
yeah, that doesn't matter. So a lot of people, you wouldn't believe the strength that people have when they're not in their right mind. They have like superhuman strength where they can take on 12 plus police officers, and they're tasing them, and the taser's not working, and they're just not in their right minds.
or they're on
Nothing's working.
drugs.
They're on drugs. Yep, drugs.
So, from what I understand, is this the job you ended up getting hurt at?
Yes. And I wish I had a cool story. Like I was trying to save the mayor of Denver, and I like, dived in front of him and took the bullet or something like that. It was actually like a Paul Blart type style injury. So I always make
That's
fun of
kind of
that.
funny because you're going through all this crazy stuff, and then
You got to have like a sense of humor, and you got to have like a dark sense of humor. That's how I was kind of dealing with all that stuff at the time. But I ended up just was doing a patrol, and I fell down the stairs, and I tore a bunch of ligaments in my
Ooh.
ankle. Yeah.
So you just kind of slipped. Was it like icy out or something? Or?
So they have the like marble flooring there, and they had I think it was the day before, they had just done the waxing on the floor, and I don't know if I just had some wax on my shoes or what, but I slipped and I just fell, and then my ankle, I just had torn ligaments, and I finally just had surgery last September. And now they think my surgery's failing, and I have like permanent nerve damage. So I'm not going to be able to go back to any of those jobs.
So maybe it's a blessing.
That's what how I've been kind of taking it as, is like, as this time that I've been on this workman's comp case, I've really had the time to try to focus on like my mental health and do more things that I've wanted to do. And I'm starting to really realize that job was not worth it. So I tell people all the time that are like people who I know that are still in loss prevention and stuff. And I'm like, the merchandise is not worth your life. Because like when I was working at Walmart, I saw, we actually had a coworker get shot who went to try to stop someone from stealing. And the guy just shot him in the head.
Oh, he
And
died?
Yeah, he died. And he left behind a family. He had kids. And it's like, man, was your life worth for that merchandise? It's not.
No, definitely not. So I really, really kind of also want to get into like where you're at now.
Yeah.
And kind of like more, I guess we've kind of briefly went over it, but like how have you gotten like past a lot of that trauma now that you've been out of it?
So I don't think I'm really past it yet now. I don't know if you can get fully past a lot of the stuff that I experienced. Because like I said before, I used to compare my trauma, which now I'm realizing I shouldn't, because trauma is trauma, right? It affects everyone differently. And so I'm going through that now. I'm like, they're trying to put me on certain medications because I'm having the nightmares. Like, I'm lucky if I sleep maybe 3 hours a night. And one thing that I just kind of noticed that did help me more was living the like van life kind of whole situation thing. And I can't explain it. I just feel safer in my vehicle. So I just feel safer. And I don't know if that's because you can just get in the driver's seat if you don't like your neighbors and just move. You know what I mean?
So coming from like somebody that's like pretty free spirited,
Yeah.
I imagine it's like probably just like the freedom. Like you can go anywhere, you can do anything.
Yeah, and that would make sense because I'm very free spirited too. And I felt like I was just so trapped working so many hours, because I was working, like I said, I would work anywhere from 16 to 24 hours. And that's illegal because we signed documents that we waived our rights for those kind of stuff. So we would work literally 24-hour shifts sometimes. And I just felt trapped, especially when I had to do the psych unit stuff. I felt like, I tell psych patients all the time, like, I'm one incident away of being in here with you. Like I'm gonna be one of their patients.
I mean, I hate to laugh,
days.
but
Yeah, no. But I would say that, I would do that, and then I'd get them laughing, and that's another way that I would help psych patients in the psych unit. That's another reason why medical staff loved me so much, because I did so well with the psych patients, and I'd make kind of those jokes, and then the psych patients would work really well with me. But But yeah, so getting back with just being free spirited and just going to the mountains a lot and just like being away from people. Like I can't hardly go shopping now. So like if I go into Walmart and I go shopping, I'm watching everyone's movements, their hands, and it almost feels like you're just trapped in your own head and you're just watching everyone. Like I can't just even like enjoy going to the movies. Like I'm just constantly watching everyone. So
So I'm betting there's like some tranquility. Like when you go camping, you know, there's like that peace you gotta get with nature, and I'm betting that's all has a lot to do with like why
yeah,
you like
that
the van life.
yeah, that too, because it's like, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, not around anyone. It's just me and my wife and my dogs, and we're just hanging out, enjoying nature, just calming sounds. You're not hearing a bunch of commotion going on.
So how did you kind of fall into that? I mean that's awesome that you were able to find that, but like what made you decide, hey, I'm gonna go live in a van?
Yeah, so I was on YouTube, and after my injury and everything, and I binge watched this guy named Chrome, and his YouTube channel is Van City Van Life, and he lives in a van with his bulldog, his English bulldog. And so I just binge watched this guy's videos, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is awesome. Like, you can live in a van and live on the road and just do random jobs, or you know what I mean, do jobs on the go, and you can just kind of be more free to go everywhere. So that's what really got me into it, and it kind of just put me down the rabbit hole on YouTube of van lifers and people who are living in their vehicles.
So how do you sustain yourself through like you were telling me earlier like DoorDash and different.
Yeah. So like right now, so it took me a while to get my wife on board to live in a vehicle. 'Cause she was like, I was like, yeah, I want to go live in a vehicle, and she's like, excuse me, like what did you just say? So it took me a while, but after she went through her own struggles with her own job, she was like, hey, let's try it. So we tried it, and just both fell in love with it. And one thing that I still can't work right now, it's really hard for me to drive more than like a few hours. Walking and standing right now is really hurting my ankle. So that's like such a big limitation on me right now that I still can't work. So I ride with her while she does delivery jobs. So she does like Walmart Spark, and she does DoorDash and just the other apps too, like Instacart and all that stuff. And
Do you guys use like Uber at all, or is that kind of hard with what you're?
yeah, we
vehicle?
don't do Uber because we have the dogs with us and she has me with her. And then we have a bed platform in our Forerunner. And so we took out all the seats in the back. So we don't have like any space for like passengers, but she'll do Uber Eats. And so right now that's kind of like what we're doing, because what's so cool is when you go to a different state, you can just change your zone on those apps and just work in that state.
So now you're living in the van, and like, is it pretty expensive to get that going? Like to where it's like actually, I guess, I don't know what the right word, I guess manageable. So you're not just like out there.
No, and yes. So if you want one of those nice expensive vans that you see all the YouTubers in, yeah, you're looking at probably the same cost of a house, like over $200,000. And when me and my wife first started out of it, we did buy a brand new van that wasn't, it was just a normal cargo van, and we just did a simple build ourselves. And we just did it was probably like $400 or $500 to build everything that we did. We just did a simple bed platform, we did the flooring, we did the walls. It looked really nice. So you can start it in anything really. If you wanted to buy like a really cheap like van and kind of build it out, you can probably start it out really cheap.
Where do you end up like staying? Because like I imagine you could get harassed if you're not in the right spots.
Yeah, and that's one reason why we switched from a van to a Forerunner. We have a lot less room, but we ended up switching from the van to a Forerunner because we're more stealthy that way. We don't look like we're living in there. It looks like it's just parked there. So we just park on side of the streets, or we will park in parking lots that allow it. Like if a Walmart allows overnight parking, we'll stay in there. but most of our stays are up in the mountains too, just off like Forest Service roads and like
Or even campsites if you
yeah,
want, like
yeah,
a little
like
grill to use and stuff.
like BLM land, like that's ran by the federal government that you don't have to pay to be on, but you can stay there. You can stay on those lands for up to I think it was like 17 days before you have to move. So there's like they call it BLM land, and you can go on there, and it's just federally owned land that's managed by the federal government, and you can stay on that land for a long time.
Okay. So that's pretty cool, man. So you're staying in these different spots. I guess where would people find you?
So
Like where if they wanted to know more information about like, hey, if I wanted to get into van
oh
life
yeah,
and
yeah. So definitely. So you can follow me on YouTube and Instagram. It's at the Forever Travelers, and that's my wife and I's channel. And that's some other thing that I kind of grew on was content creating really helps with the mental health and all that stuff. And so you can follow us on there. And like I said, it's I'm still struggling with it. I'm still in the process of trying to get that stuff under control. And those are some of the things that I'm doing that helps.
so are you seeing it like with so now you're on are you gonna get disability? Is that the initial plan eventual plan if they can't fix your leg or
Yeah, it depends on how bad the PTSD is and how bad the injury is. And then they'll put me at a percentage of disability. And I'll either get, well, I can't really file for disability because for some reason in the United States, if you're married and your significant other makes more than $1,200 a month, you don't qualify for disability.
that's insane.
So I'm just gonna have to tough through it. Yeah, and try to find a job that I can do with the injury and the PTSD because they're putting the PTSD and my ankle injury all on one thing. Because when I got hurt at work, I didn't have I'd never had any signs of PTSD. So they said they see this a lot in police officers and first responders is the PTSD doesn't really kick in until they've been injured on the job really badly. Then
Or maybe they had time to like back away from that experience.
yeah, exactly. So like how my PTSD happened was I first started having nightmares of the injury. Then it went to like nightmares of like the people that I saw commit the murder. And then it just went crazy from there, and it just spun out of control where now like during the day I can be riding in the passenger seat with my wife and she's talking to me, and then she'll be like, hey, are you listening to me? But I've been zoned out that whole time, just reliving those moments.
So how do you get through like and I know you're not like even dealing with my own like BS throughout my whole life. There's some things you're just never gonna fully I guess get over. But how do you get to a point where you can live your life? I guess that's
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out now. So I think I'm in the right step, like I'm going down the right direction by doing the van life stuff, doing the YouTube content creating and all that kind of stuff. It's just hard to say. It's like they're gonna try different medications with me and we'll see how that goes. I didn't really want to do medication route. I try to do more natural like marijuana and stuff like that.
do you think that helps?
I feel like it helps, but when it comes down to like if I have to go get another job after this and stuff, like I can't be on marijuana all the time. So they're gonna try some different medications for me and see how that goes. But kind of just going with the flow right now and trying to figure out because like when I get those zone out moments where I'm just like zoned out, but I'm like reliving the incidents that I went through. I try to ground myself and I try to bring myself back when my wife tells me I'm doing it, or if I notice I'm in that zoned out mode by looking at certain things and going, okay, I see a Spider-Man action figure. Okay, my wife's sitting next to me. I'll try to touch like certain things, to try to bring me back to reality.
Have you ever thought about like maybe like an emotional support animal or something to kind of help you with that anxiety?
Yeah, I would say my pug helps me with that stuff. I already look at them as my emotional support animals. So I have a pug and he helps me with that kind of stuff. So.
I only mention it because my wife, she's got lupus and she has been using our dog, I guess, as as a support animal. She's using more for mobility, but and in this journey, we've kind of come that you can like the dogs can like put pressure on your chest, and that can help like with people with anxiety. I don't know if you have a lot of anxiety, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have tons of anxiety now. Like I said, it's hard to go shopping. Like I'm always watching people's movements. It's like a constant battle in your head, and you don't know how to win that battle. It's just a constant. It's crazy. And I noticed that too, and why I say like my dog is my, you know, helps with anxiety and stuff, because when I'm having a lot of anxiety or I'm going through those PTSD moments, sometimes they'll jump on my lap and put their head on my chest, so they know what I'm going through.
if you could give anybody advice that is maybe dealing with a similar situation, what would that advice be?
So my advice for anyone out there that's dealing with trauma is take that trauma head on and settle it when it happened. Meaning, like, get the help now, talk to people about that trauma, let people know like what happened, how you're feeling, what you're going through and stuff right now. Don't try to store it away like I did, because then once you keep storing it away, eventually it's all going to come out and just be 100% worse on you. So like, just really try to get help after the trauma. Don't wait.
And then you know, do you have any like maybe closing thoughts or anything you'd want to cover that maybe we didn't?
Yeah, just, the closing thought is, working tons of hours for material things is not really worth it. And that was one thing I learned, was just material things. Go out there and live your life. If you want to work less and experience more and go travel more, just do it. Just go live in your vehicle and go do it. Who cares what people think? If you're like, man, I want to just work, DoorDash and just work 20 hours a week, just enough for me to survive and then go explore, just do it.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah,
well, so they can find you at it was
at
the Forever Travelers.
Yeah,
on YouTube.
Yep, on YouTube at the Forever Travelers.
And then you guys have Instagram.
Instagram too. Yep.
Do you guys have a Twitter?
No, we don't really use Twitter much. I do have a TikTok that's just #Browns, which that just shows you the more crazy side of me. So,
okay. And I'll put all the links in the description so that everyone, they can find you. And I'm sure you'll get more as I grow, you'll grow, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So I'm very excited to see where the YouTube journey takes me. It's more of just a thing that helps my PTSD, and just doing it for fun and try to be creative, and we'll see where it goes.
Hell yeah, dude, it's been a freaking blast having you here and experience, you sharing your story, like, and hopefully others can hear your story and it helps them. And that's kind of where the direction of like this whole podcast is wanting to go. And I'm just hoping that, yeah, like I said it again, but that it will help other people.
Yeah, definitely. Once you told me about it, I was like, man, I want to be a person on there, because I have so much to share and so much to tell people, and a lot of people don't realize security guards go through a lot of the stuff that I went through. So I just want people to know that you're not alone, and just kind of take it on head on and get the help right away before it becomes too much of a big monster on you. So
oh yeah, man. Well,
yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, definitely, man. I'm happy to be here. So
all right, and you guys have a good one, and go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google, basically anywhere where you can find a podcast.
See you guys later.
All right.